In a dark and treacherous world where evil lurks at every turn, a vengeful monster hunter, a tormented vampire, and a fierce magician unite in a reluctant alliance to pursue their common goal, destroying Dracula. In the year 1455, a woman named Lisa of Lupu stands before a grand castle surrounded by corpses impaled on stakes located in the region of Wallachia. She waits momentarily in awe of the magnificent structure before knocking on the castle doors. The doors open slowly, revealing a darkly opulent hallway. Lisa introduces herself to the castle's master, Vlad Dracula Tepish. She desires to become a doctor and believes Vlad's advanced knowledge can help her achieve her goal. Vlad questions what she can offer, and she proposes in exchange for sharing his advanced knowledge with humanity. She would teach him about the world beyond his castle's walls. Though initially hesitant but intrigued by her headstrong nature and intelligence, Vlad agrees and leads her into his laboratory, where she expresses her hope that the knowledge in Vlad's possession may better the lives of all people. 20 years later, in the city of Targovist, Lisa is tragically burned at the stake by order of the bishop, who deems her a witch. Before her death, she makes one final plea to Vlad not to seek revenge, which the bishop coldly declares as being commendable. Almost, that is. On the outskirts of the city, Vlad arrives at Lisa's home after a long journey, only to find it burnt to the ground. He discovers what happened through Lisa's neighbor, Mrs. Javara. Filled with rage, he warns Mrs. Javara to flee Wallachia with her family as his last act of kindness. In honor of Lisa, in a blaze of flames, Vlad disappears before Mrs. Javara's eyes. In the city square, Lisa's charred remains turn to ash as the surrounding folk cheer. Suddenly, a massive apparition of Dracula appears from within the fire, demanding answers about his wife's fate.
What have you done to my wife?
The bishop calls Lisa a witch and attempts to convince the crowd that Dracula is a fictional figure used to justify the practice of black magic. Enraged, Dracula denounces their lies, declaring his wife had only ever devoted herself to science, and vows to give them but a single year, after which he will cleanse Wallachia of humanity.
1 year.
Back in his castle, a frenzied Dracula makes clear his intention to spend the next year summoning an army from hell when he's confronted by his son, Alucard. Alucard pleads with his father to reconsider his path and focus his vengeance solely on those responsible for Lisa's death. Dracula, however, consumed by anger, argues that none are innocent, for all the people of Wallachia blindly follow the church's orders. Alucard, unwilling to let his father commit genocide and tarnish Lisa's memory, confronts him and is gravely injured in the process. A year after Lisa's death, the city celebrates the day of her burning with a festival. The Archbishop of Targovist, addressing the crowd, mocks the existence of Dracula and his empty threats. Upon finishing his speech, the sky darkens with blood and monstrous fetuses raining down upon the city. The cathedral's windows shatter, impaling both the Archbishop and his priests, and the cathedral catches fire, flames rising into the sky, where Dracula's face materializes amidst the burning clouds.
1 year.
Dracula admonishes the people for celebrating the day of his wife's murder, and with a fiery explosion, his castle emerges from the ground, unleashing an army of bat-like creatures that ravage Targovist. Dracula commands his horde to destroy the city and then spread subsequently throughout Wallachia and kill every human they see.
Kill everything you see. Kill them all. Go now. Kill. Kill.
For my love.
In a nearby village tavern, a farmer named Bosha recounts a story to his half-brother Cobb and the innkeeper. Bosha complains about the injustices faced by the working class, including a fine he received for defending his goats. Suddenly, a man rushes into the tavern, warning of Dracula's approaching army. This causes Bosha to express his belief that all of Wallachia's troubles can be attributed to the old aristocratic families and the notorious Belmonts. A mysterious man sitting nearby conceals his face as he quietly curses at the mention. of the Belmonts. Boscha's relentless complaints about the Belmonts continue, fueling the unnamed man's growing frustration. Inebriated and looking for another tankard of ale, the man walks up to the bartender who asks to see some coins before serving him another drink. Searching his pockets, Boscha notices the Belmont crest on the man's tunic, immediately identifying him as a member of the infamous clan. Ignoring the man's forward attempts to defuse the situation, that is, Boscha accuses the Belmonts of being involved with monsters and dark magic. He holds the Belmonts personally responsible for the rise in Dracula's army, given they were excommunicated by the church. The man identifies himself as Trevor Belmont and tells them the Belmonts have fought against the monsters all the time. He again tries to leave peacefully, but is attacked by the patrons. After a chaotic bar fight, Trevor exits the tavern seeking a place to rest for the night. The next day, Trevor arrives in Gresset, a city that has already been besieged by Dracula's army. The city is devastated with corpses strewn about and severed heads whom have been mounted on stakes. The fearful townsfolk have barricaded the gates, but Trevor discovers an opportunity for entry through the broken gate of the city's sewer outlet. Despite this unpleasant prospect, he ventures into the sewer, double determined to find sustenance inside this city. In the city square, Trevor buys a strip of goat jerky and engages people in conversation. He learns of a tribe of speakers in the city and hears a local legend of the sleeping soldier, believed to be slumbering in the catacombs of Gresset, waiting for the day he's needed once more. While strolling through an alleyway, Trevor encounters two priests escorting an older man. They take the man, revealed to be a speaker, in a deserted alley where they berate him before getting ready to beat him to death. Unleashing his whip, Trevor incapacitates one of the priests and warns them to leave the old man alone. The second priest brandishes a knife and attacks Trevor, who easily evades his attacks before removing one of his eyes with his whip. Trevor commands the first priest to retreat with his injured accomplice, which they promptly do. Grateful for Trevor's intervention, the old man informs him he's an elder of the Cadre speakers and invites him to seek refuge in their lodging. Whereas speakers are generally a nomadic people, Trevor questions them on their unusually lengthy stay in Gresset, which has brought them at odds with the church. The elder explains the city was completely cut off and had no aid, so they stopped to help out as much as they could. He reveals the true reason behind Dracula's incursion on Wallachia and explains they have reason to believe the sleeping soldier underneath the city is real. One of their members ventured into the catacombs to find the warrior but has since gone missing. While initially unsympathetic to the plight of the people because of their persecution of the Belmonts, Trevor, by contrast, agrees to recover the missing person or their remains, when he learns the missing speaker is the elder's grandchild, but only so long as the speakers promise to leave the city before they're killed in a confrontation with the church. Trevor promptly enters the catacombs when the floor gives way underneath his weight, causing him to fall into a strange room filled with unusual statues. He walks up to inspect the central statue when suddenly a cyclops barges into the room and starts attacking him. He dodges the creature's attacks as best he can until he finds an opportunity to retaliate and promptly kill the monster. The Cyclops' death turns the stone statue back into a young woman named Sifa Belnadis, the Elder's granddaughter. Sifa agrees to accompany Trevor back to the surface, where they inform the Elder of Sifa's survival. She insists on returning to find the sleeping soldier, but Trevor argues the strange room matches historical Belmont descriptions of the inside of Dracula's castle, so it would rather be best to avoid waking up whatever sleeps down there. Outside the speaker's abode, a host of priests confront Trevor and bring him to the church. There, he's confronted by the old bishop of Targavist, who reveals his plan to eliminate the speakers, people whom he considers heretics. Yet, he offers Trevor mercy should he choose to leave the city immediately, even going so far as to propose a potential reversing of his excommunication. Trevor scoffs at the bishop's audacious offer, noting his lack of authority to make such a decision. The bishop, in turn, confidently reveals his plan to become the church's sole authority if Dracula's hordes continue to ravage Wallachia, all of which have been showcasing his zealotry and his ambition. Trevor refuses and returns to warn the speakers. Despite his earlier promise, the elder insists on staying, refusing to be driven out by a madman and dooming the people of Gresset in the process. The angry mob arrive at sundown and break down the door of the speaker's home, only to find Trevor alone inside. Trevor, who had forced the speakers to hide in the catacombs, confronts the mob and the priests alike. He promptly attacks and wounds the priests. collapses the hut on top of them, and escapes. Leading the mob on a frantic chase across the city. While they fight, night falls, and Dracula's hordes descend upon the city. The bishop stands in his church, waiting for news of the speaker's death, but the door of the church opens, and monsters slip in. The bishop, confused, exclaims they cannot enter the house of God. A massive demon, capable of speech by the name of Blue Fangs, tells the holy man the church he occupies is nothing but an empty box. The monster confronts the bishop on his rather Hippocratic, zealous, and otherwise self-serving actions before thanking him for his role in bringing them all to this world, before promptly killing the old man. Meanwhile, Trevor continues to evade the pursuing mob through the streets of Gresset until he finds himself cornered in the town square. As the mob closes in, Sifa uses magical abilities to conjure a wall of fire, protecting her newly minted savior. Revealing her powers as a formidable sorceress, she asserts her fighting capabilities to Trevor, refusing to allow others to fight on her behalf.
I fight for myself.
Spotting the priest who had his finger severed by Trevor earlier among the crowd, Trevor promptly challenges him to a one-on-one fight. Despite the priest's attempts to incite the mob, the presence of Sifa's magic, as well as Trevor's resolute demeanor, give them all pause. Trevor derides the priest for his rather cowardly actions and lies, which have led to the wrongful condemnation of the speakers by the townspeople. He highlights the priest's role in misleading his people, turning them into murderers while failing to prevent the demon's return. Upon this revelation, the crowd's sentiment turns against the priest, leading to his bloody demise at the hands of the furious townsfolk. As demons invade the city, Trevor takes charge of its defense, leveraging his knowledge and expertise to combat the monsters. He organizes the townspeople, all armed with pikes and polearms, on the front lines, while instructing a local priest to sanctify water drawn from a nearby well. He also instructs the gathering of salt before demonstrating its effectiveness by coating his sword with it, urging others to do the same. Upon the demons reaching the square, Sifa employs her ice powers to erect barriers, forcing the demons to engage directly with the pikemen. They manage to vanquish the remaining demons, all except for Blue Fangs, who manages to land a blow on Trevor but is immobilized by Sifa's ice spikes. As his last act, Blue Fangs warns about the invading demon army before Trevor's whip deals a fatal blow, causing it to explode. Suddenly, the ground beneath Trevor and Sifa gives way, plunging them into an even deeper chamber in the catacombs. Working together, they manage to land safely without injuring themselves. With but no way out, they dodge mechanical traps, rush past unstable floors, and navigate between giant mechanical gears as they make their way further into the catacombs' depths. Eventually, they stumble upon an elaborately designed room with a coffin in the center, and accidentally awaken the sleeping soldier. The warrior of legend dormant underneath the city is revealed to be none other than Alucard. Recognizing Alucard as a vampire and revealing himself to be a Belmont, he confronts Alucard and engages him in a duel. Sifa urges him to stop, for Alucard is the one the speakers have been seeking. Trevor dismisses Alucard as a simple monster and surmises from the state of the traps Alucard has only been down here for a short time, not centuries. Alucard concedes he's only been asleep for a year, and Trevor takes this as an invitation to begin his attack.
Stand the fuck up. Do you know what Dracula looks like?
Using his whip, he's able to injure Alucard and keep him at a distance for a short while. Alucard subsequently gains control of the whip, and he's forced to abandon it and confront Alucard with a sword. Managing to hold his own for a short while, Alucard ultimately outclasses him, severing his sword and punching him across the room. Alucard grabs Trevor and threatens to rip his throat, but Trevor stealthily pulls out a small blade and without warning shoves it through Alucard's chest. Finding Trevor's determination to kill him, even if it results in his own death amusing, Alucard begins to laugh. Sifa interrupts the two, halting the confrontation. Alucard reveals his name and identity to the duo as the son of Vlad Dracula Tepish. He further explains his need to sleep in the catacombs as a way of recovering from the injuries inflicted upon him following his conflict with his own father. He and Sifa also reveal to Trevor the complete prophecy of the sleeping soldier, explaining the soldier would join forces with a vampire hunter as well as a scholar. Rather dryly expressing his distaste for speakers, Trevor asks Alucard to why he wishes to stop Dracula, who quietly replies that this is what his own mother would have wanted. Reluctantly on the same page, the trio all emerge from the catacombs, ready to confront Dracula and fulfill their intertwined destinies.